Hello everyone, and welcome back to some more Tokyo Babel with me, Phantom Zwei. When we last left off, Gethel was defeated, and it looks like we'll be joining these strange individuals that showed up to save us from that insanity. So let's get back into it and see what happens. So, I decided to start with a scream. Lilith covered her ears, grimacing. Honestly, I couldn't care less at that moment. The scenery stretching before me was of far more importance. Lilith flashed a smile, then made her look like a cat toying with a mouse, for lack of a better expression.
日本人のあなたにとっては見慣れた場所じゃないの？ああ、いや、地方出身って可能性もあるか。いいえ、残念ながらここに住んでいた気がしますよ。見た覚えがある建物がいくつも存在する。でも、だからこそわからない。
I yelled at the top of my lungs.
一体、東京に何があったっていうのよ。さてさて、何があったのやら。私だって知りたいくらいだもの。まあ、あなたより深い場所まで知っているのは確かよ。
An ominous smile crept onto her face.
でも、あなたの意見も聞きたいかしら。
I genuinely wondered if she was trying to confuse me. Either way, I blurted out the first explanation I could think of.
第三次世界大戦が起きて人類が滅亡する。いや、した。はいはい、なんだって。それではかすっただけね。じゃあもうわかんない。諦めるの早くない？当たり前でしょ。こんな常識からド外れた状況、一般人の私には荷が重すぎるわよ。一般ね。まあ、いっか。じゃあちょっとだけ説明してあげる。
Lilith spread her arms wide, then slapped her hands together with an audible clap.
あなたたち人間の世界は滅亡が確定しました。
Whoa, that's a bit heavy for an introduction.
天使と悪魔も状況的に滅亡間近です。天使と悪魔？そこで私たちは生き残った人間に望みを託すことにしました。今や打ち捨てられた世界である煉獄を使い、疑似的な人間世界を築き上げました。
Okay. Purgatory? Wait, wasn't that the place where sins were purified? I could recall something along those lines.
そう。ここは天国でも地獄でも地上でもない、天国へと至る道のり。その半端な場所に存在する狭間の世界。今は煉獄ではなく、東京バベル。
Okay. I see. Pilgrims of the Apocalypse.
そう呼ばれているわ。
That's a very bizarre premise, but here we are.
東京バベル。なんでそんなことになったかとか、私の正体とかはおいおい話すとして、セツネたちの後を追いましょう。
Lilith took a firm hold of my hand. I imagined she did it so I wouldn't get separated from her, but no. She actually kicked herself off the ground and took up into the air.
ああ、大丈夫。大丈夫って何が？
Looking over her shoulder, Lilith flashed a positively mischievous smile.
下に人間はいないから、下着が見える心配はないわ。誰もそんなこと心配してないわよ。私が心配しているのは墜落死だけ。大丈夫。根拠はないけど、なんとかなるわ。根拠はないんだけど。根拠がないなら大丈夫じゃない。お、いた。いたって何が？うわ！
Gethel, my former sister, had wounds all over her. her clothing having been reduced to a frayed, tattered mess. The numerous burn marks pockmarking the cloth were no doubt caused by that bolt of lightning that struck her earlier. It was beyond trying to make sense of the situation, or I was beyond trying to make sense of the situation. This was all too much for me. She's still alive, huh? Fan service-y shot. As we landed on the ground, Lilith let go of my hand and motioned for me to stay back. She approached the girl called Gethel. The angel attempted to stagger to her feet while staring daggers at Lilith. Lilith considered Gethel with a sinister smile, her gaze cold as ice. Lilith bent down to pick up her fiendish blade resting at her feet. Gethel returned to Lilith's mockery with an intense glare, her words devolving into a cry. Lilith shook her head. Gethel turned pale as chalk, her lips trembling, dreading to part. Gethel's gaze shot from left to right, her body still trembling violently. A faint laugh spilled forth from Gethel's lips as she, ignoring Lilith's question, began muttering to herself. The two fell silent. Lilith turned towards Setsuna, momentarily leaving me as the only person observing Gethel. Gethel looked deep into my eyes, smiling. The near palpable wickedness in her grin made me retreat a step or two. Lilith was trying to tell me something. Perhaps she wanted me to get out of the way. Was it me, or did she appear visibly agitated? Setsuna, who had been on standby in the air, came soaring to my side immediately. Yet even with the gift of foresight, he would have arrived late. Gethel's last-ditch effort at exacting revenge had been fulfilled simply by leveling her gaze on mine. And moments later, the world itself distorted before me. Jamming. Through an act of hacking, cracking, and violent forced intrusion, My eyes ceased to be mine. I screamed at the top of my lungs, collapsing to my knees as I covered my eyes. I felt my senses ravaged by something transcending mere pain. My brain was in complete disarray, simply trying to process the sheer volume of information, flooding its deepest recesses. Program, status, properties, system information, file information, basic component information. A violent shockwave of information shook my senses, like the swarm of myriad insects buzzing right next to my ear. Completely disregarding the fact that others could have been watching, I messily vomited on the ground. Setsuna placed a hand on my back. I appreciated the concern, but yeah, I wasn't okay at all.
ゲテル、あなたの目を移植するなんて最後の最後にひどいことをしてくれたじゃない？
Gethel responded to Lilith's words with a brittle laugh, her tone seemingly pregnant with both hatred and grief.
くぐつ空見、人間よ、見なさい、見なさい、見なさい。私が見たもの、私が感じたものをそのままくれてやるわ。大丈夫よ。最初はなかなか見えないでしょうけど、すぐに慣れて見えるから。
How convenient for the plot. Lilith's warm, compassionate tone interrupted her. Gethel went on, her voice a miserable rattle.
いいわ、殺して。もう何も見えない。これで何も見えない。どこに行っても私は私でやられるはず。遺言は2つある。1つ、守り人に謝っておいてちょうだい。私は少し彼らに対して悪辣すぎたわ。出会えたらね。2つ目、私の死体は海へ。オッケー、捨ててあげる。
A second later, I heard a sickening crunch. Despite still having my eyes covered, I could easily tell what had just transpired. Gethel died. Someone killed her. Nothing more, nothing less. Well, that was a sudden end to her.
やってみる。
Opening my eyes, a series of numerical equations, as well as strings of Japanese, English, and a number of other languages I couldn't identify flashed into my vision. However, the phenomenon lasted only a moment before subsiding. My eyesight was seemingly back to normal.
一体私に何が起きたの？目を移植されたのよ。ゲテルの能力の一端ね。彼女は隠された事柄を司る天使。したがってその目はあらゆる存在の真実へとハッキングすることができるようになっているわ。あれ？それっていいことじゃない？人間の脳では耐えることのできない真実もいやおうなしに知ってしまうかもしれないけど。宣言撤回します。もうなんとかして。
Lilith merely shrugged with a playful smile, which kind of pissed me off, honestly.
しかし記憶を消してから戻してあげようかとも思ったけど、そういうわけにはいかなくなったわね。返してくれないなら何もかも知ってる限りのことを洗いざらい話してくれた方がいい。
リリス、私はゲデルを運ぶことにする。
ああ、待って、それなら一緒に彼女も連れて行くわ。この世界の果てを見せておいた方がいい。
Setsuna directed his gaze at me. His expression was impossible to read. What was going on in that head of his?
了解。
He picked up Gethel's body with a sigh as Lilith took me by the arm and up into the air.
銀座だ。
The cityscape was in shambles, its buildings worn down beyond repair.
銀座ね。これで無事この階層が解放されたわ。まったく一番最初のクエストでこれよ。 先が思いやられるったらありゃしない。ほら、何か聞きたそうね。何かある？
I shook my head.
とりあえず些細なことはあまり考えないようにした。後でゆっくり説明してくれるんじゃないかなと期待してる。そうすればまあわかることはわかるでしょ。察しが良くて助かるわ。というかあなた割とたくましいわね。鍛えられたの。
The last couple of hours or so seemed to have toughened me up quite a bit, truth be
着
told.
いたわよ。
We landed in the middle of a large roadside, with no particular distinguishing features. It looks just like the one we came from. I mean, aside from it being in complete ruins.
ちょっと待って、パージの許可をもらうから。
That's a hell of a picture. Purge. Lilith whipped out a rotary phone in the middle of the road and began noisily dying on the ancient thing.
東京バベルの外壁を一部外すらしい。彼女を海に捨てるために。
Dislocated. Basically like instant transportation?
本当に落とすんだ。物理的に。
Setsuna nodded, his expression as serious as I'd ever seen it.
物理的に。最後の願いなら叶えてあげなくては。
はいはい。じゃあ待ってるからよろしく。
Lilith slammed the receiver down as I watched on in a daze, loitering about the surrounding area. Moments passed, and I found myself awakened to the oddness of the scenery around me. My newly acquired eyes easily discerned and saw through its
リリ
deceptions.
ス、これひょっとして背景がループしてる？ああ、よくわかったわね。ここから先は何もないわ。言ってしまえば昔のゲームと同じよ。リアルでどこまでも突き抜けられそうだけど。
Lilith extended a hand, smiling. She really did appear to be having fun, huh?
絶対にここから先にたどり着くことはない。リアルにしか見えんわこれ。
I abruptly stuck out my hand, then glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see it in the far distance behind me. No such luck, though. Yeah, knew I shouldn't have had my hopes up.
こらこら遊ばない。あーと来た来た。
As Lilith cast her gaze skyward, so did I, spotting an odd-looking creature. A bird, perhaps? Flying our way into the horizon.
鳥か飛行機か。はてさてその正体は。到着した。
A new character! Raziel. From Legacy of Kain. Not quite. Whoa. I found myself staring in awe at the young girl as she approached us, locks glistening in alluring gold, skin white as freshly fallen snow. She felt like a being out of this world, her beauty transcendent. In her right hand, she was holding a, what were those called again? It looked an awful lot like one of those thingamajigs I spotted downtown. The something pad? A Klingle? A portable mini-computer, basically. Klingle. Her most striking feature was her pair of glimmering white wings, almost like an angel's. Actually, scratch the almost part. This looked like the real deal. She surveyed us with a frigid gaze. She was certainly not a foe. But, friend? Of that, I wasn't quite certain.
じゃん。絶対領域持ち美少女ラジエルでした。
In sexy thigh eyes.
私は美少女だったりするのか?
Raziel posed her question to Lilith, her tone reflecting no particular interest.
まあ美少女と言っていいんじゃないかと。
Lilith had it spot on, though. Raziel was strikingly beautiful. She looked at us, head cocked to the side. And that's when I noticed that Raziel wasn't indifferent or frigid. She was simply spacing out. Ah, she's an airhead angel.
ほほう、美少女だったのか。まあそれはそれとして、パージの許可をもらってきたよ。ういうい、そんじゃ、パージよろしく。うん。刹那以外、少し離れて。
Everyone but Setsuna? We all stepped back, with only Setsuna still holding Gethel's body, remaining at Raziel's side. Ah, I see.
よいしょ。
Raziel grabbed hold of the very air around her, then pulled. And like that, the entire thing, road included, came off with a creak. She gave the impossible to describe object a light touch. It's like she's removing a picture frame. Guided by Raziel, it gently landed on the ground, like a fallen leaf carried by the breeze. Through the hole left by the removed object, we could see the open skies. This is bizarre as hell. Setsuna lightly kicked himself into the air, leaping over to the outside of the world.
ちょっと近づくわよ。しっかり捕まりなさい。あ、うん。
We followed Setsuna inside the opening, as anxiety made my heart race like a locomotive. And then I saw it. I laid eyes upon the outside of the world. The silly little phrase was all I could muster in my sheer amazement. I knew the ocean would be vast, I really did, but as I beheld the massive body of water stretching out endlessly before my eyes, I couldn't even spot as much as the tiniest speck of an island in the distance. I felt completely and thoroughly overwhelmed. Limitless skies and a boundless ocean, those were the only things left in this world. The sky took on an eerie hue, orange hue even, resembling the hours of dusk, and although the ocean below reflected the light, its waves rolled about with a certain sinister blackness to them. I casually looked sideways. This time, I was left speechless, forgetting even to breathe. How to phrase it. It was almost like a photo of the Tokyo Tower, red and white, with a design many would consider to be a touch out of style. Yet standing in close proximity to its towering enormity would instill a fierce impression, leaving the spectator overwhelmed and in awe. A colossal structure far beyond what my senses could possibly conceive. True, I was standing on the outside. At the very same time, though, I could very much perceive myself still being inside the structure. AKA Purgatory. Well, duh, it certainly did. In fact, I considered dispatching a search team just to locate my jaw on the floor. And with that, Lilith handed me over to Raziel, who grabbed me by the nape like she was handling a kitty cat. Honestly, it was kinda scary. Lilith and Setsuna stood on the outer walls of Tokyo Babel, their bodies slanting diagonally, mostly because the wall itself was slanting as well. As Setsuna signaled to Lilith in a dispassionate tone, the latter stepped closer to Gethel's body, caressing her hair. Hints of pity and compassion swam over her features in turbulent waves. Yes, you were fucking insane. Amen. Setsuna turned to face me, his words dispelling the fear gnawing at my heart. I looked down at the lifeless body of my former sister, her features peaceful in slumber like death. I had no memories of my past any longer. They were all gone without a trace, leaving nothing but vague concepts in their wake. The tears came without warning, much to my own surprise. After all, this was the very same girl who plotted to murder me. And if Setsuna hadn't come to my aid when he did, Gethel would have carried through with that plan, without a shred of doubt. Yet her death still made me feel a bit sad, a sense of loss prickling at my heart, like a tiny needle. Setsuna let go of Gethel, without uttering another word. Her body plummeted through the air in slow motion, heading slowly but surely towards the waves below. The law of inertia, on the other hand, propelled us ever onward, and what seemed like the whole of Tokyo Babel was on its way somewhere. The soaring Purgatory drifted further and further from Gethel's falling body, until I'd completely lost sight of her. Interesting.
これにて夜の魔女リリスの名において第一階層銀座解放を宣言する。第一階層銀座の解放を確認。
GJ, guys. Raziel casually slipped in an oddly colloquial phrase into her report.
無理にフランクにしなくていいから。そう。ところで一つ聞きたい。
Raziel's gaze drifted in my direction. I immediately straightened myself in reflex.
刹那はともかくとして、こっちは初対面だったか。
Raziel nodded, her fingers dancing on the surface of her tablet to check up on something. She then made me press a finger against its screen, never once letting her gaze leave my face. Raziel innocently cocked her head to the side, producing the sort of expression that would kindle a fire in most peculiar and indescribable in one's chest. I could call it cuteness or a certain natural charm. Well, something along those lines, either way.
記録にない。大方、ゲテルが勝手に引っ張ってきたんでしょ。大方はわかりませんが、まあそういうことかもしれません。
Either way, I agreed with her assessment.
お名前。私の名前は。
I held up. My name was Kagutsu Sorami. Was it really, though? I mean, surely I had a proper name and life to call my own. But the way I was now, I had nothing left. Nothing at all.
くぐつそらみで一つよろしく。くぐつそらみ。かっこ仮とかつけておいてくれると嬉しいかも。将来本名を思い出した時のために。かっこ仮と。いいのソラミ。ラジエルはよほどのことがない限り訂正を許可しないわよ。
You kidding me?
まあいいです。普段はソラミと呼んでくれれば。了解。ソラミかっこ仮。かっこ仮は削ってください。ソラミかっこ笑い。
Oh my god.
いじめか。いじめだろ。
ラジエル、彼女はソラミと呼んでほしいそうだ。
了解。じゃあくぐつソラミ、どうか今後ともよろしく。そしてお気の毒様。お気の毒ですか。
Well, I guess I did go through hell. A total slaughterhouse. Just thinking about it was making me feel depressed.
それじゃ学園に戻るとしますか。そこで一休みして第二回戦について考えましょう。学園
Level 1 is complete! On to level 2.
そう、東京バベルの人間たちが存在する最後の希望の学園。私たちはパンドラと呼称しているわ。パンドラってギリシャ神話の？ええ、あらゆる最悪と希望を丸ごと抱えた場所でしてね。皮肉といえば皮肉かしら。
Lilith's tone softened to a whisper.
行くなら時計台が一番近い。オッケー、じゃあ行きましょう。
Lilith took a firm hold on my hand, and a moment later, we were up amidst the clouds. I had to fully shake off the fear, or rather, I had yet to fully shake off the fear, but I managed to pull myself together just enough to admire the scenery below. I couldn't help but wonder, where did the illusion end and reality begin? The drifting scenery below us was a mere shadow of his former self, yet it stood as palpable proof that people once lived here. I wasn't sad enough to be moved to tears, but the scenery still filled me with a hollow melancholy. I can read, really. I let the feeling sink in as I held onto Lilith's hand, the wind brushing against my cheeks as we soared onwards. Where would this road lead me? Would something await me at its conclusion? I had no idea. Not anymore. My thoughts were occupied with one thing only. The wind grew in intensity, practically howling in my ears. Still, I raised my voice just enough to overpower it. Setsuna appeared somewhat surprised. You're the afterthought, Lilith. As conversation kept us busy, our trip to the clock tower felt a lot shorter than it actually was. What is it with visual novels and schools? In this situation, like, it made sense that we started out in a school, because, high school girl, or at least she thought she was. Who knows who she really was. But, we're going back to a school now? After we're dealing with angels and demons and... I don't know. Visual novels love them some school settings. Setsuna nodded, then proceeded to follow Raziel's instructions in setting the clock tower's huge, clock-towery hands into the required positions. And just like that, the clock's massive faceplate opened with the heavy, emphatic sound of a railway coupler sliding free. Lilith leapt through the clock tower without bothering to wait for my response. It was pitch black inside. I tilted my head, but couldn't even make out the entrance I had just come through. All I could see was darkness in every direction. Then, all of a sudden, I sensed Lilith descending, felt the air pressure shift. But that was all. I began to question my own vision, unable to tell if my eyes were opened or closed. That is, until I came upon a bright, luminescent spot. Was this how babies felt in their moments before birth? Or were they too busy shivering in fear at the thought of emerging into the cold, harsh reality to mind anything else? Somehow I doubt that babies have quite such a fatalistic view of the world at that point, but, The world appeared to have come to a halt in temporary stasis, though it might have been all been in slow motion. Eventually, I felt Lilith abruptly decelerating. Seconds later, I found myself in a confined, somewhat old-fashioned room, covered with linoleum flooring. In most schools, this would be like the night guard's office, or the caretaker's room. Either way, the room gave off that kind of atmosphere, or rather, that was precisely what it looked like.
風呂もあるし、冷蔵庫には食べ物もあるわ。お腹が空いたんなら何でも食べていいわよ。カップラーメン食べたけりゃポットにお湯があるから。でも勝手に使っていいの？いいのよ。ここは私たちが使っているんだから。
私は外にいるから、今のうちに着替えておいてくれ。
Setsuna left the room without waiting for an answer. I, had nothing to change into, though.
ほい、これが空見の着替え。
The piece of clothing she handed over was something I'd been intimately familiar with, strikingly yellow in hue with black lines and a zipper. In short, I was staring at a tracksuit.
私、青色がいい。はいはい、小豆色は譲らないわよ。
They seemed fixated on their preferred colors. Well, I would have been fine with anything, really. Still, if I had to choose from these three, I would have easily picked the yellow one. All I needed was a katana for the picture-perfect image. Ah, okay, is that a Kill Bill reference? I'm not totally sure, but I slipped out of my school uniform and into the tracksuit. Having just done that, I was already feeling lighter.
ラジエル、洗濯お願い。
Raziel took Lilith's clothes, and with a nod, and then directed her gaze at me.
制服。あ、いいんですか？
Raziel responded with another nod, prompting me to hand over my uniform.
じゃあ、また。
Raziel then left the room. In her stead, Setsuna entered. Lilith filled a pair of teacups she had fished out of the cupboard with tea, then offered them to me and Setsuna.
さ、飲んで飲んで。どうも、ありがとうございます。
I blew on the tea a bit, then promptly took a few sips, allowing the warmth of the hot, bittersweet liquid to sluggishly travel down my throat and into my stomach. I exhaled a sigh of relief, finally having realized just how uneasy I'd been up until this point. If you hadn't been, you would basically have been like Superman or Superwoman. So,
落ち着いて。はい。
Lilith sat down with teacup in hand, making herself comfortable on a cushion while flashing a cheeky smile.
よしよし。それじゃあ、語ろうか。話そうか。喋ろうか。伝えようか。この世界のあらましと終わりと半ばを生きる者たちについて。
Alright, and that seems like the perfect place to end off today's episode, because you just know this is going to be super long, and we are almost at 40 minutes as is. So, as always, thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you all next time.